Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Garth Johnson, and I am the Paul Phillips and Sharon Sullivan Curator of Ceramics at the Everson Museum in Syracuse, New York. So, my name is Garth Johnson, and I have a problem with China. Does anyone else in this room have a problem and an addiction with China? So 10 years ago, I took my first trip to Jingdezhen, which has led to a series of trips since then. And it was during that trip that I encountered one Carolyn Cheng, who has nurtured this addiction in many, many people, but through doing that has created networks among people, and then also networks among China, has connected people in ways beyond that I could ever consider possible. So Carolyn Cheng holds a BFA from Michigan State University and an MFA from Academy of Art University in San Francisco. Her work can be found in private collections and public museums around the world, such as the British Museum, the National Museum in Beijing, the MFA Boston, the Ceramic Museum in Vallauris, France, Hong Kong Museum of Art, the Fitzwilliam in Cambridge, and very soon, the Everson Museum of Art in Syracuse, New York. So without further ado, I give you the Pottery Workshop's Carolyn Cheng.
Hi, everybody. How many of you have been to China? Raise your hands. Oh my God, that's a lot of people. Okay, so you have heard about Yixing and Jingdezhen and all these places that make ceramics in China, right? Yeah? Okay, audience participation, please. Recently, I've moved to a place in southwest part of China because it's quiet out there, and it's very, very interesting. There's 26 different kinds of minorities that live out there, and they all wear different minority dresses, and it's just an inspiration as an artist to live there. And it's Chinese. When you think of Chinese ceramics, it's always like porcelain, and maybe an Yixing teapot to sprinkle here and there. But in the southwest part of China, it's a lot of indigenous artists who live there, artisans, and they are in like villages that you've never heard of. And this morning, Judith Schwartz said, "Can you write a list of all these ceramic studios and the places that we can go to in China?" And I just thought, just the place that I've moved to the last 3 years, I just don't even know where to start because there's so many places. So without further ado, I will start showing some slides because I only have half an hour. Is it working? Oh, okay. So this is the one of the festivals in where I live. And these are the old ladies singing a song, and they're like singing to each other. These people bow, and then the ladies across would sing. Can I raise the sound a little bit? Yeah. How about the lights? Lights? Nope. It has to be bright. This is the protector, like there's these gods in the middle, and then they bring them out in like chariots and stuff and parade them up and down the street. And each village, there's like about 20 villages around the lake where I live, and each of them have their own bentu. These are the elderly women's dragon dance. They did it for the opening of the Pottery Workshop. And this is the Lahu minorities in the south part of Yunnan, and this is their spring dance. But then after their spring dance, they start singing like that, and I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like Christian songs. And they're like, oh yeah, they're like all Christians. The priests came like back in the 100 years ago to 150 years ago, and so they all became Christians basically. So they sing their hymns in their own dialect. And this is the Peter Pugger of... Peter Pugger. I learned that if you put some salt in your clay, that it's more plastic, so the bull really works well with their piss. Anyway, this is a tile maker in the south part of the province. This is mass production, one-man style. Can any of the lights be turned off, like these lights? Nothing? Pardon me? Okay, good. Okay, good. Next. So, I guess there's no pointer to this one, right? Okay. So this is Yunnan. You can see Shanghai's over there, and Beijing's way up there, and Hong Kong's down here. And this is Yunnan province, and that's the border of Burma, Laos, and Vietnam. And you used to call it the Golden Triangle. That's the area. So that's the province that I'm talking about. And this is the actual province itself with many different areas. Sichuan Bana down on the bottom is, Jackson Lee also has a studio down there. And then that's where all the tea are made, the pu'er tea of Yunnan, the black teas. And then you have Honghe, the yellow one, and then pu'er, and then Yuxi, and then Lijiang Dali and Deqing. Those are all like, I found many potters studios out there. So I show you some pictures of the places. This is Honghe area, which is the south, and it's, they call it Ti Tian. Can everybody say Ti Tian? Yeah. Ti Tian means the rice paddies that are like layered in steps. And these mountains are very tall, and every spring you can see them, and they look like this, like in the fall. So it's a major tourist trap, and you can go there. And then in Bana, they have the tea makers. So these are wild tea from the plantations around the area. You can hike the mountains and look. And then you can also, these are the ancient tea roads. Like they traded tea from south of China, they bring it up north and across the Silk Road to the west. And so these were the roads that the horses went through. So you can, pick the trail and hike it. And of course you have all sorts of weird fruits and things that you've never seen in your life, or mangoes that are so big that it's like bigger than your head. So this is where I live. This is from my house. I take a photo every night, and this is daytime. There's 19 range mountains and a lake that is 120 kilometers around. So I live by the lake, and then it's like 45 minutes up the mountain, walk up the mountain. So it's a really beautiful area. And then that's in the fall when the rice cut down and stuff. And then here's a picture of us taking a boat by the lake in almost evening time. So it's like really cool area. And then this is now actually in the mountains. It's snowed in. We are 2,000 meters up in altitude. I don't know how much is that, 2 miles? 1 mile, 2 miles, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so pretty high up. This is 4,000 meters up top. And then they have these tourist trap things that are like, I don't know what they are, the Buddhist wishful, like, my boyfriend and I will live forever, happily ever after. And you put one of these things on top and hope that it will hang up there. And then close to Dali, that's Dali, and then close to Dali is this historical Shinto temple. The Shinto priest from Japan would come and say, this is where the original place that happened. But the Tibetans also come and throw their prayer flags there and say, this is ours. So every year you see all of them coming up there. And if you say, this is Jizhusan, which is Chicken Foot Mountain, and if you say, I must go to Jizhusan, then you have to go in the next 2 months or something bad will happen to you. That's chicken, Tony. Tony said, what's dragon, chicken, and whatever animal I just said in my topic? And I'm like, okay, you find out. Somewhere I'll sprinkle some animal in there. And then, of course, we have Gandalf and his brother living in our village. And they're looking at this. This is in July, we have the Fire Festival, and in July, August, it's always very rainy in Dali, and so they have the fire festival and throw fire at people, burn fire in their temple, like they stick these gigantic sculptures and burn them. And then these are some of the temples there. Very interesting. And then remember just now in the beginning of the video, I had these people, ladies singing, and then there's these gods in the middle. They put them in these carriages and then carry them around. So these are like, everything you look at, you're like, oh, I can just use one of the elements of this and make it into my work. And these are some of the things that are in the temple, like the wall reliefs. And then this is a very interesting, it's called the, I don't know, I can't remember. This is called the first bend. Now, in China, there's two rivers, right? There's the Yellow River and something else. I can't remember. Well, they all go from the east and they go out the ocean that way, right? Well, it's because one of the rivers they've got this. If it didn't go around the bend like that, it would have gone south and then gone through Vietnam, and we would have only one river that went through China. So this is like the first bend of that river. That's very important. And you get to see this when you drive up to the Tibetan area of Dali. And that's the Yulong Xueshan, the Dragon Jade Mountain. And then this is the Meili Xueshan. These are both very sacred mountains for the Tibetans. This is especially a sacred mountain, like the Year of the Horse. This mountain is the horse, they call it. So the Year of the Horse, all the Tibetans would circumambulate this mountain. They would walk for days and days around the bottom of it. And on a clear day, you can see this, but in fact, it's always cloudy. And this is like the second largest Tibetan palace, temple in China, and that's in the top part of Yunnan. And so these are some of the imagery. Good question. Why ruin it with an answer? You look it up. I don't know. It's in Chinese. I don't know in English. Pardon me? It's not the Dalai Lama's home. It's the second biggest one. The first one is in Tibet. This is not in Tibet. This is in Yunnan. These are some of the things that you see out there and say, oh, I'm so inspired. And then this is a village that you walk inside and then you stay there and you walk way in there and there's a waterfall, there's a sacred waterfall for the Tibetans. So anyway, so that's Yunnan. The history of it is Ming Dynasty is 1600 onwards. And before Ming, it was called Annan or Dali Guo or Nanzhao Guo. And those are really a separate kingdom by itself. So that kingdom was basically Laos, Vietnam, Burma, and Yunnan province. So it was separate, so they have their own very much separate identity. A lot of it is related to Vietnam and Thailand and Laos. So for just a few hundred years, 1600 to now is how many hundreds of years? 400, 500 years, yeah. So then it's part of China. What we see out there are traces of that southwest part of identity. It's not, you can say that you can bind that few countries together as one and see that there's similarities between them. So this is wood carving. We have wood carving. We have everything in Yunnan. And we have, these are like really intricate, this is detail. I can't even find the original big piece. It's a really big piece. And then we have like Indigo Dye. And then so last year, a bunch of Hong Kong kids came and they took this class. And these are some of the things. It's indigo dye and tie dye. They use like this string and they tie it together and then they of course release it. You know, here in high school you use rubber band, right? Like they use they sew it on and then they pull it up and then it becomes this bundle of thing and then they dip it in dye and then it becomes like that. They're kind of cool. You can come and take a class out there. Classes are offered there. And then embroidery is one of the other technical skills that they have. These are all like, just now, the old ladies singing and dancing, every single one of them have their own embroidered clothing that they made themselves. So you can take classes from them. See, here's an old lady with her bag and her dingly-danglies. Anyway, you have silversmith out there, like lots of silversmith classes so you can take and learn from. Yeah. And then the wood carver. These are called jama. This is a person who makes these things. They carve it into these square blocks, and then they make it into these paper cutting things. That's the god of Jama. Jama is this kind of paper cutting, wood cutting thing. I don't know why this is called calling the spirits. And these papers are printed and used in temples. Like, for example, if you have a kid and they always cry at 6 o'clock in the evening, they have colicky, horrible, and then you buy one of these things that's the Kusen, which means the crying god. And you buy a few of them and you burn it in the temple, and of course tomorrow she will stop crying. And then, these like, oh, I'm traveling, so I got to burn a few traveling sheets of paper so that I'm safe. And then, or like, I have a bunch of animals. I hope they are going to give me a lot of money. So anyway, so these things are made also there. And then there are now contemporary classes where you can take and learn how to do them and print your own. Anyway, go back to ceramics. I think this is NCCA, the ceramic conference. So. Ceramics in, remember Yunnan, the area, so when they, very long time ago, Neolithic period, oops, the next slide. Neolithic period, they found these things out there. So these are burial pots that they have found. But guess what? They have blue and white, long time ago, like in the Ming Dynasty. They already have these things made in that area. So they are now mostly found in like tombs, so they were burial pots that went along with the dead. But they are all made in Yuxi area, which is the middle part of the province. So we think that the blue cobalt that came from Persia actually went through Yunnan. It was like part of the Silk Road. So these you can also see in the museum in Yuxi. They have an extensive collection of the sort of like early Ming, late Yuan dynasty blue and white pots. They're trying to revive it now out there also. And then this is in Huaning. Huaning is an area where they are still making ceramics in factories. And that kind of green is a Huaning green. And this is an old pot. So anyway, so these are the things that they used to make. Now, I named my thing chicken as one of the topics of this talk is because these are called, it's a chicken pot. It has a hole in the middle of, you open the lid, there's a hole in the middle where the air comes up. And so it's like a pot to cook a chicken in. It's a, steamer, yeah. It's a steamer kind of thing. So they steam chicken soup in it. So, but the way they make these, they look like inlay ceramic, like, inlay colored. It's an incredible way of making. I'll talk about it later. I've got a slide of people actually, the process of making it is unique to China in this area. In the rest of the world, you don't see the way how they make it. It's not the same. Anyway, so now going back to contemporary, what are we doing now in that area? Bana is like the place where Jackson is, and in fact, he held an exhibition of international ceramics with some local artisans, and I took some photos of that exhibition. So these are the things that are made in the south part of Yunnan. They're mainly for temples and for like daily functional use. So I think these are for the temples. And then, of course, these are like for tea and things like that, because tea is a major drinking thing in Sichuan, but not so many people make like Japanese-esque Minke teacups. They all just make these like simple forms, low fire, red clay. They don't make that much. And these are for the temples also. And so are these. They are actually put on top of tiles in the south part of China, Yunnan. Anyway, so these are glazed, lead-based glazed pots, fired in a kiln like that. This is a project that Jackson did. He said that the ladies have forgotten how to make their own pots. So he went and did demos and showed them how to make it. And in the end, they made like a ton of these. The lady in the middle with her feet on the banding wheel was originally made, we made a video like in 2008. This is one of that's the lady. In this movie is made in 2008. She makes the pot with her feet, swinging the banding wheel around and making the pot. Then she stacks them up like that, and then she puts straw over the pots, and then mud on top of the straw, so to make like sort of like a makeshift kiln. And then she lights the kiln from inside. She puts like corn cob on the bottom of the pots first. And then she just lights it up, make a hole, light it up, and then like 3 days later, it's like that, and then she takes the stuff out and sells them in the market. She still makes them there now. So if you have a chance, you should go and take a look. That's south part. And then so now we're going to talk about the middle and then the other parts. I found this chart somewhere on the old kiln site, and I was like, wow, this is like incredible, like they used to have this kind of pattern and design on their pots. And their kilns are either like a beehive kiln or like the dragon kiln. And so remember that video where the tile maker was making those tiles? And this is how they stack it up in the in the kiln. And then later, I'm showing you some cats. Those cats are stacked on top where the top part is. And so on the outside, you can see the kiln is actually recycled tiles or like reject tiles. They just stack it over so keep the heat in. This kiln is actually making these things. Sorry, these things. Does anyone know what this is? If you've been to China and you've eaten street food, you know what they are. Come on. Yes? What's a rocket? They make the coal in like round things and they put it through the 3 holes and then light it. And then on top they put the wok or whatever on. So this is for cooking. So that kiln just now was for, like, this kiln is to make these kind of, in Chinese it's called lu xing, the heart of the stove. Anyway, so these are some of the tiles that they've made and stacked. We are now in Jianshui, which is the middle part, next to Yuxi, where the blue and white was. This is an old kiln site, the dragon kiln. They used to make flower pots out there. Now, Jianshui is the place where I told you about those chicken pot steamers. That's the photo is in the catalog. So these 2 kids came back from Musashino Art University. They studied graphic design masters. They didn't even do ceramics, but their names are Guihua and Daniao. So Guihua, she did graphic design in like inventing new characters, like alphabet design, kind of graphics. So she draws on these pots. So first you throw the pot, then you calligraphy on top of it, and then Daniao, she's in charge of cutting it all out and inlaying other ceramic colors on it. See, here she is. They're like young people, creative, new stuff. They're not the traditional Jianshui people. The Jianshui people are, the original antiques slides that you see are what they make now anyway. So nothing new, but these guys are like, wow, they're from Japan. They studied from Japan, came here, Chinese kids. The other kid is like from Shanghai. She's from Jianshui. And so that's how they carve and stuff. And then they fire the pots first. Then they use a stone and like coarse stone, medium stone, fine stone, and burnish it. So sort of here's how you do it. Throw the pot, and draw the stuff. And then in the end, fire the kiln, and then burnish it. So the mass production Zhenshui people, they asked the prisoners in the prisons to help them burnish the pots. This is the young people's work. Anyway, meanwhile, back in Dali where I live, on top of like houses, there are like things called tile cats. Like you see that one way up there. And this is the guy who makes them. In my video, actually, he's in there. He's still making them like mad. Here's some of the things. These are to ward off evil. So you want your house to be lucky and auspicious and wonderful forever and ever. You have a cat put on top of the roof. And I have a friend who is a collector of these things. So here are some of them. Do you see the curve? So you put on top. My neighbor illegally built too tall a building, and I hated him because he blocked the view of part of my village. So I put a tile cat facing him, and he knocked on the door one day and said, "Excuse me, can you remove it? I'm having bad luck. The government has come and like got me into trouble, and I think it's your tile cat." So I'm like, "Oh, good." I kept it there. Yeah, they're really like somebody's family was like, in distraught, and like, I have a Cheng come and climb up to your top of your roof and put a tile cat up there, okay? And they're like, yes, please, yes, please. So anyway, so we've been making these crazy things, our own tile cats. And the pottery workshop in Dali, we have like you can walk. It's a tourist trap area. So people walk in and say, okay, I like to take some ceramic classes. I'm like, yeah, and you're gonna make a tile cat. So meanwhile, our instructor, Chen Jiali, she's really good. She's invented all these like funky new tile cats. Anyway, so you can come and have fun and like do a 2-hour tile cat thing. And that's my wood kiln at home. And here I am firing my wood kiln in Dali. So you guys are welcome to come and fire with me. Anyway, going up north a little bit, we're back in the Tibetan area where the mountains, snowy mountains, Meili Xueshan, and so Nishi pottery. They used to fire. This is the guy who makes the pots. He makes phoenixes phoenix. Yeah, they make phoenixes and qilings as the motif for their pots. They use the fire like this. Is John Neely here? Good. Okay, they use the fire like this. They stack the wood and they stack the pots, put the wood on top, fire it, throw the sawdust or wood chips on top of it, and then smoke it, and they become black pots. Thanks to John Neely and other people, they now build kilns and stop firing stacked wise. So US aid is wonderful. It's more efficient now. They use less wood. They fire faster than before, and all their pots are black. So I went there and fired with them because the hole was too much oxygen was going in. So I asked them to like sort of close it down a little bit so that they can reduce from the beginning. They fire up to like only like 900 Celsius, only like cone 06, cone 07. Anyway, so here they are. And then in the end, they put these pine leaves, needles inside and just smoke it instead of sawdust. And then their pots come out beautifully back. And here's one of the, this is like, they call it the 烤火罐, which means like in the wintertime, if you're freezing, you put the wood and coal inside and keep yourself warm. And then you can put that other thing on top and make it into like a stove. What they're doing here is using butter or lard, pork lard, fat, and rubbing it to like seal off the pot. And here I am. We have chicken soup for sale because we have a market, creative market in Dali. So I put my chicken soup in there and we sell it, and it's yummy. It's like if you cook with wood, the food tastes different. It tastes great. Anyway, so here's the pottery workshop. And this is, we have sort of, if you walk in, we show you where all the pots are made and where they're from, and there's a little bit of history of Dali. And then this is the gallery, studio space. We even have Brent wheels. So, I hope you come to Dali. That's my son's wedding in Dali, and all his friends came. So, thank you. I'm done.